My name is Albert Baca and this is my presentation, The Essential Invention That is the Transistor. This is my audience. A transistor is something that is present today in nearly any direction you look and is present in nearly every modern device we have come to rely on in our daily lives. It is so often taken for granted mainly because of the fact that nobody knows what they are. When asked, many people will say that they have heard of a transistor at some point in their lives, but would not know to tell you what one is. Whether it is an alarm clock or the new Apple Android device that wakes you up every morning, they all have transistors. Things that make our lives more enjoyable, from the radio inside your car to the television and video games you play at home when relaxing, all have one thing in common: they have transistors. Transistors makes our lives more enjoyable in so many ways that it is truly impossible to number them. A simple back massager or flashlight, even something as complex as a space station that orbits the Earth in space, all have one thing in common: they all have transistors as well. They give meaning to the term "good things come in small packages." Although transistor serves such complex purposes, the essential role that it plays in electronics is actually very simple, and according to Liam Bean, an author of hubpages.com, it is broken down into two categories. The first being that it acts as a switch, much like the one on the wall we use to turn on the lights on and off every day. It is simple and is used to provide current or cut it off completely. Second, a transistor is used as an amplifier. Contrary to what you may think is implied by the name, it serves a different purpose and is not there to make electricity greater. Instead, it acts as a metering device and controls the flow. An easy way to understand the way a transistor works is to think of a stereo in a car, and when you turn the volume up or down, and the audio corresponds accordingly. It can also serve to make a signal greater or weaker. Before the transistor came to be, there existed a much less sophisticated rudimentary device that served the same purpose, although poorly, called the vacuum tube. Many times bigger than what we know today to be the transistor. The vacuum tube was inefficient as a switch, according to thebestofmedia.com, a contributor of tomshardware.com. Apart from consuming a great deal of electricity, the vacuum tube was also to a great extent very unreliable. They needed to be replaced every few hours in some cases, and also created a good amount of heat, something that is not good for any electronic device. All of these are factors that contributed to the need for something better and led up to the creation of the transistor. There are actually three inventors that were credited for the invention of the first transistor. The three men: Dr. John Bardeen, a specialist in electron conduction properties of semiconductor; Dr. Walter Brattain, a specialist in the atomic structures of solid; and Dr. William Shockley, the director of transistor research working for Bell Telephone Labs. According to Stephen Ports, a writer for Fizzlink.com, patented their invention as a semiconductor amplifier, a three-electrode circuit utilizing semiconductive materials. Their invention was so essential to the advancement of technology that the three men won the Nobel Prize for the invention of the transistor. Dr. Bardeen also won the Presidential Medal for the Freedom at the same time. This is an example of the first transistor. When the word computer comes to mind, the majority of people jump to two things: either a laptop or a desktop computer. However, the truth is that computers are very present in our modern world and exist in more places than where you type papers and make PowerPoint presentations. When vacuum tubes were the latest technology, they did not do half of what the transistors do now. Our cell phones are able to do the majority of things our desktops can do now. According to Nathan Chandler from HowStuffWorks.com, when transistors were first introduced in 1947 by Bell Labs, they utilized the element germanium as a conductor along with impurities to make the germanium less conductive, hence the term semiconductor used earlier. Much like transistors were leaps and bounds ahead of vacuum tubes, today more advanced transistors are much better than what came before it. They were no longer made from germanium today and are instead silicone based, making them much longer lasting, more reliable, and maintenance free. This is an example of what the vacuum tube was in 1910 and the size of a transistor today. Not only do transistors gotten smaller as years go by, they have reached their limit and are now smaller than the size of a pencil eraser. Sharon Godin of ComputerWorld.com says the most important invention of the 20th century was the transistor, according to some researchers and analysis. Yes, that's right, the transistor. The little talked about transistor is the building block for the processor. Without the transistor, some say that our servers would be 3 stories high and laptops would be a prop for Star Trek. Our televisions would still use vacuum tubes and our cars wouldn't guide us to the nearest Indian restaurant. Heck, without the transistor, what would the digital economy be like? Would Microsoft, Google have become giants? Would geeks have become cool rich guys driving BMWs? Probably not. When electronics ran on vacuum tubes, everything was so expensive to produce, unreliable, and needed constant repairs. It is because of the transistor that technology has advanced as far as it has. So next time you're listening to Pandora on your mobile phone, surfing the internet, or doing anything on a wireless internet connection, thank the transistor. The 20th century's most important invention that changed the way we see the world.